I mean, the way I think about it is, money is like a promise, right? Money is like a favor or a promise. I still go to work to earn money, says Wesley. Yeah. Money is like a favor. I mean, you go to work. Let's say you work for 8 hours a day. And in exchange for 8 hours of work, somebody says, okay, I promise you that this token that I give you will give you, like, you can exchange this token for something you want from someone else. That's the promise. That's money. The money itself doesn't do anything, but because the entire society believes in money, we collectively promise to you that this money you've made can be used to exchange things that you actually want at some point in the future. And so you take that promise, and then you go to a shop and you exchange it for something you actually want. Money is a promise. And as long as everybody keeps their promises, it works. Yeah, exactly, Wesley. It sounds even more like a scam. But as long as everybody keeps their promises, it works, right? As long as everybody says, yes, I will keep this promise. This dollar is a promise. You give me $1, I will do something for you. As long as everybody says that, then it continues to work. It's a fascinating thing, I think, when you think about it that way. We all agree that $1 is $1. We all agree that $1 should buy a certain amount of things. So you do something for me, I hand you a promise of $1. And then you take that promise, go to someone else and say, okay, here's a promise. I want to exchange this promise for something from you. For example, 1 euro cent costs more to make than it is worth eventually. Yeah, that's right, Wesley. A lot of money is worth more than it costs to make. So I mean, and the copper in is probably worth more than 1 euro cent too. Yeah. So you need people to keep their promises and trust each other. I mean, if you're gonna look at it that way, then you just collect all the 1 cent coins and then melt down the copper and sell the copper and make money that way. So if people start doing shenanigans like that, then your currency just falls apart, right? Your currency just doesn't work anymore. So your currency only works as long as people play by the rules and don't try to not keep their promises. I mean, currency manipulation has always happened. People used to clip coins. Back when coins were made from gold and silver, they would like shave off the edge of the coin to get gold. You know how coins, I don't know if it's true where you are, a lot of coins, they have little ridges on the edges. Have you noticed? So a lot of coins don't have smooth edges. It has a little pattern on the edge. It's to stop people from clipping the coins. It's to stop people from just shaving a little bit off the edge of the coin. Yeah, that's right. Almost all coins have a pattern. So if you have smooth edges, you just kind of shave off the gold off the edge, and eventually you do enough coins, and people don't notice, right? And so you get piles of gold from doing that. And that's like a way to steal money from money, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. You keep shaving little bits off the edge of the coins until you accumulate enough gold to make another coin. And suddenly you have more money than before. So the little pattern on the edge of the coin comes from trying to defeat the attempts to shave off the edge of the coin. And like eventually some coins will get so badly clipped that it's just like, it's not even a circle anymore, it's just like an oval. Or like, you know, it's quite clear that a bit has been cut off from it. Like a a severely clipped coin, and it weighs like 80% of what it's meant to weigh. It doesn't happen anymore because we don't actually use real gold or real silver in coins anymore. Well, it's kind of to do with making fake coins. Or, you know, it's kind of to do with currency counterfeiting and manipulation. It's to stop people from messing around with the actual coins. Oh, and back to money being promises. That's what banknotes were originally. Banknotes, or paper money, was invented in China. And in China, they were called silver tickets. A silver ticket. It's basically a sheet of paper that says, it's a contract written on a piece of paper that says, a certain bank will pay you a certain amount of silver if you present this piece of paper to them. It's literally a contract, a promise written on a piece of paper, signed and sealed by the bank. And it's a silver ticket, so it's a ticket that you can use to exchange for silver. And that was the invention of paper money. So instead of people carrying around a giant bag of silver, which is heavy, they would go to a bank, ask the bank to write a ticket for them, and say, you know, in exchange for this piece of paper, you have 500 silver coins or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's the invention of paper money. It's a promise. It's literally just a promise on a piece of paper. And so the promise was worth something as long as the bank agreed to pay. Oh, it is. Wesley says, I think it only got worse now that everything is virtual now. Well, the notion that everything is virtual is, it makes things a little less reliable. So it used to be the case that, the gold standard was that the government made the promises. The government printed the money, and the promise was that if you take the piece of paper to the government will exchange a certain amount of gold for that piece of paper. And that was the gold standard. But eventually the government of the world decided to ditch the gold standard. And so now your money doesn't actually, there's no promise. All the money you have in your bank doesn't exist until you actually go get it. Yes. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. So the bank has a certain amount of cash in hand. The bank also has a certain amount of liabilities owed to it. So other people owe the bank money. And the bank in turn owe you money. So if you go to the bank and want your money, the bank will of course give it to you from the cash in hand. Or alternatively, if their cash in hand is not sufficient, then they'll go to the people who owe them money, get the money from them, and then pay the money out to you. Theoretically, that's what happens. So it's not that the bank doesn't actually exist. It's not that the money doesn't actually. It's promises. Somebody somewhere else has promised to the bank that amount of money. So again, we come back to this promises. Everything is promises. Okay, this leg needs to go, right? Let me just fill this in a little bit. It's actually really funny. I mean, it sounds flimsy until you consider that the whole world functions like this, right? Like every time you go into debt, it's a promise, like you promise to pay it back. It's funny that we survive purely on promises, says Wesley. Well, if it weren't for the system of promises, what would happen? Like if the promises don't mean anything anymore, you could still survive. Like imagine if you grow your own food in your garden and you eat the food that you grow, right? Like if you just grow your own food, then you don't need to promise anyone anything, or you don't need to take anyone's promises, right? You just eat your own stuff, and that's it. That's your livelihood. Of course, that's not efficient, right? It means everybody has to be a farmer. Or you know, if we go back to bartering, you exchange actual things with people. Like you know, I grow tomatoes, you grow carrots. I exchange my tomatoes for your carrots. I mean, there's no promises. Like the food is actual food. You know, it's actually stuff that's tangible. Then there's no promises involved. But everything's less efficient that way, right? Because if you don't want carrots or if you don't want tomatoes, then you need to find someone else to barter with. We've decided that promises are more efficient. As long as everybody keeps their promises, then promises are more efficient. And there are ways to make sure that they keep promises. But then people start scamming because a tomato would be worth 2 carrots, for example. Well, you can always disagree. That's right, Wesley. I mean, you can always disagree on the value of things. And if you can't agree, then you don't barter, right? I'm not sure you would eventually go back to a currency. You just have to barter, or you just have to haggle every time you exchange something. Like you have to renegotiate the value of things every time you exchange, which it takes time, and sometimes you disagree and the trade doesn't happen. So sometimes currencies do fail, like in the middle of a natural disaster or in the middle of a war, currencies may fail. So in the middle of a natural disaster, people might just not take your money anymore. They'll say, well, I'll exchange you this stuff for food. I'll exchange you this stuff for weapons or something, and they won't take your money anymore. That's possible. I mean, there are stories from... I mean, I'm Chinese, right? So the stories from back in the Second World War, the Chinese were invaded by the Japanese. And you know, during those times, Chinese currency would be worth nothing because everybody expects the Chinese to lose. So, everybody expects the Chinese to lose the war, and they were losing the war for a while. And so nobody would take Chinese money anymore because it's not worth the money it's not worth the paper it's printed on. And so to barter for anything, you have to use gold. Like people who had a bit of gold jewelry or just kind of gold coins. Like gold would work, but if you go to someone with Chinese dollars to try and buy food, like nobody would sell you anything. So currencies fail in those kind of situations, like in wars and disasters. If people don't expect your currency to be worth anything in the future, then they just don't take it. But the Japanese probably stole all the money they could find, even though it wasn't worth anything. Says this is actually not. The funny part is that the opposite is true. During the Second World War, the Nazis would try to fake other people's currencies to to scam them into giving them stuff. So actually the opposite. Instead of the Nazis stealing British pounds, they made extra British pounds to mess up the economy. Yeah, it's true. So the Nazis did a bit of counterfeiting. Uh, it was Swiss notes. It was Swiss notes because the Swiss were neutral. So the Nazis faked Swiss notes to try to get the Swiss to sell them stuff or to exchange gold for them. So they counterfeited money. So instead of taking their money, they made more money to exchange for other things. I mean, it didn't always work because they were fake notes. So it was fake money. It was counterfeit currency. But you know, like taking your money is one way of doing it. Giving you more money is a different way of doing it. Like giving you more money can also mess up your economy. But the Nazis stole all the gold and money from people to catch it. Yeah, they did. The Nazis did. I mean, that's how they funded their war. They killed everyone and took all their gold. And then they lost the war anyway. What an asshole. What a bunch of assholes. No, they make fake money because look, it serves two purposes. For one, if they can convince you, or if they could fool you into taking the fake money, they would exchange their fake money for tangible goods like food and weapon and fuel. Then they gain from it. The other thing is, if they dump a lot of fake money into your economy, then your currency gets devalued because all of a sudden there's a lot more money floating around in the economy, and so all of a sudden your money is worth less if the fake money stays in your economy. So if you can't tell the difference between the fake money and the real money, it is the same as if somebody printed a lot of money and just put it into the economy and your currency would devalue. So it actually is an effective economic attack. I mean, it is pretty smart. I mean, well, it's worth trying, I guess, is the way to put it. I still remember. Wesley says, I mean, the Nazis weren't stupid in many cases. Well, I mean, they were stupid in the important things. The big things, they were very wrong about. I don't agree with what they did, but how they did it was very efficient. Well, they did the wrong thing very efficiently, so I guess it's still wrong. So the big thing, racial superiority, like they got the big thing wrong. They were not superior. They were not racially superior. And then everything that followed was just compounding the mistake, really. Oh boy. I mean, yeah, I mean they weren't terrible, but they weren't as great as they thought they were. They weren't actually superior. Doing a good thing with a bad reason is still bad, says Wesley. Yeah. Oh, oh, making a mistake really efficiently. It's still a mistake. Wow, you made that mistake really effectively. Amazing. Doing a bad thing well. Hmm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't even know where I am. Are we nearly done? Kind of. Oh, we're nearly done with the gold stuff. I wonder how many people think about stuff like money, like what money is. The fact that money is promises. I don't think a lot of people do. I remember back in Hong Kong, like if you read the banknotes, it literally says that the bank promises that this is worth money. At least the technological advancement because of it was good. I wonder about that, Wesley, because it's almost an accident that rocketry came out of it. I mean, rocketry, they used it to make weapons, right? It turns out you can also do space exploration with rocketry. Okay, that's cool. But then other stuff, like chemical weapons, like that's not useful. Hi, Sofa.